Alright, football fans, while the main focus of the NFL draft is on selecting college prospects, the draft weekend is also a prime time for teams to maneuver and make trades, sometimes involving players already in the league. And just recently, we saw a notable move involving a quarterback getting a new home, as the Seattle Seahawks have traded quarterback Sam Howell to the Minnesota Vikings. The deal went down on Saturday during Day 3 of the draft. The Vikings traded their fifth-round pick, number 142 overall, to the Seahawks. In return, the Seahawks sent Sam Howell and their other fifth-round pick, number 172 overall, back to the Vikings. Essentially, the Vikings moved down 30 spots in the fifth round to acquire the quarterback they wanted. It's a relatively inexpensive acquisition in terms of draft capital, but one that has significant implications for both teams' quarterback rooms. For Sam Howell, this trade marks another stop in what's been a bit of a nomadic journey early in his NFL career. He was originally drafted by the Washington Commanders in the fifth round back in 2022. He eventually became their starter, playing in all 17 games in 2023, putting up some big volume numbers, nearly 4.000 passing yards and 21 touchdowns, though he also led the league with 21 interceptions on a struggling team. He was then traded to the Seattle Seahawks in March of 2024, where he spent one season, playing limited snaps behind the starter. And now, just over a year after being acquired by Seattle, he's been traded again to the Vikings. At only 24 years old, he already has significant NFL starting experience under his belt. For the Minnesota Vikings, this move is particularly interesting because it brings in a player their leadership has reportedly had their eye on for a while. Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah confirmed that the team heavily researched Sam Howell before the 2022 draft and had him highly rated on their board, viewing him as a pure talent. Adofo-Mensah reflected on passing on him then, saying that he and coach Kevin O'Connell, who were new hires at the time, felt it wasn't the right time in our journey to make such an investment in a quarterback. He used a relatable analogy, saying, "Sometimes that happens in life. That maybe a person you're dating is not the right time and place. But then later on in life it happens at a better time." It seems the Vikings feel now is that better time to acquire the player they've liked for years. The expectation in Minnesota is that Sam Howell will slot in as the likely backup to their presumed franchise quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy, who missed his rookie season in 2024 after suffering a torn meniscus in the preseason, has opened the 2025 offseason program without limitations and is expected to be the starter, although the team hasn't formally named him the QB1 just yet. Howell's acquisition gives the Vikings a young, experienced backup behind McCarthy, adding to Brett Rypien, who is also currently under contract. This trade is part of a significant remake of the Vikings' quarterback room following the 2024 season. They said goodbye to three quarterbacks from last year's roster: Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, and Nick Mullins. They had hoped to re-sign Daniel Jones to be McCarthy's backup, but Jones opted to sign with the Indianapolis Colts instead, reportedly under the assumption that McCarthy would be the clear starter in Minnesota. The Vikings even had serious internal discussions about potentially signing free agent Aaron Rodgers after he expressed interest in joining them, but ultimately decided to put those talks on hold to ensure McCarthy maximized practice reps during the offseason. Bringing in Howell now is clearly a move to solidify the depth chart behind McCarthy with a player they've long valued and who offers valuable starting experience for a backup role. On the Seattle Seahawks side, trading Sam Howell continues the significant overhaul they've made to their quarterback room this offseason. It's worth noting here that some details in the source text about the Seahawks QB moves, like trading Geno Smith to the Raiders or Darnold's contract with the Vikings, Seahawks, appear inconsistent with known facts from the 2024-2025 offseasons. So we'll focus on the overarching moves. The key reasons for Seattle trading Howell seem to be tied to their other recent moves. They acquired Howell in that March 2024 trade from the Commanders. But then in this 2025 draft, they selected quarterback Jalen Milroe in the third round. Drafting Milroe created a situation where the Seahawks had multiple quarterbacks in the mix, reportedly up to 5 by some counts when including other players like Jaren Hall. This surplus made Sam Howell, who had a tough statistical year starting in 2023 and limited positive tape in 2024, expendable via trade, allowing Seattle to recoup some draft capital after drafting Milroe. Seahawks GM John Schneider indicated that trade conversations with the Vikings about Howell began at the league meetings earlier this month and that several teams were interested before Minnesota pulled the trigger. For Sam Howell, this trade offers a fresh start with an organization that clearly liked his talent profile even before he entered the league. He's going to a team with a presumed starter in McCarthy, allowing him to come in without the immediate pressure of being QB1. And instead focus on competing for the backup role and developing. His experience from starting 17 games in 2023 is a valuable asset for a team looking for a capable backup, providing depth and a safety net. For the Vikings, they get a young QB with significant experience at a low cost by swapping picks. For the Seahawks, they consolidate their QB room after drafting Milroe and gain some draft capital back. The trade sends Sam Howell to Minnesota, placing him in a new environment with a clear role as the likely backup quarterback. It's a move that makes sense for the Vikings, finally acquiring a player they've long rated highly, and it allows the Seahawks to continue reshaping their quarterback room after adding a new rookie in the draft. Sam Howell gets a fresh opportunity in a place that seems to believe in his talent, slotting in behind the team's expected franchise cornerstone. Alright, let's talk about a notable trade that happened during the NFL draft weekend, involving a quarterback on the move. On Saturday, the Seattle Seahawks traded quarterback Sam Howell to the Minnesota Vikings. The details of the trade involved the Vikings sending pick number 142 in the 5th round to the Seahawks. In return, the Vikings received Sam Howell and pick number 172, also in the 5th round. So essentially, the Vikings acquired Sam Howell by moving down 30 spots in the 5th round. This trade made sense for both teams based on their quarterback situations heading into day 3 of the draft. For the Seahawks, they had just drafted quarterback Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round on Friday night. That pick gave them 5 quarterbacks on their roster, making it seem inevitable that they would trade one of them. With Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Jaren Hall, Jalen Milroe, and Howell all there, something had to give. The Seahawks GM John Schneider said they had several teams interested and the Vikings were the one that pulled the trigger. For the Minnesota Vikings, they were looking to add a quarterback behind J.J. McCarthy, especially after Daniel Jones opted to sign with the Colts instead of returning to Minnesota as a backup option. The Vikings front office had liked Sam Howell previously, having researched him heavily before the 2022 draft where he was picked in the 5th round by Washington. Vikings GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah even talked about the timing, saying it wasn't the right time for them to invest early in a quarterback when they first arrived in 2022. But now it's a better time. Like a relationship analogy, they like Howell's combination of youth at 24 years old and his experience, having started all 17 games for the Commanders in 2023. Howell is now expected to be the likely backup quarterback to J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. It's a new start for Howell, who had a rough 2023 season starting for the Commanders and then struggled in a relief appearance for the Seahawks last December after being traded to Seattle in March of 2024. Ultimately, this trade continues the significant quarterback movement we've seen for both the Seahawks and the Vikings this offseason. For Seattle, it clears up their crowded quarterback room after drafting Milroe. For Minnesota, it adds an experienced, young option to compete for the backup spot behind McCarthy, acquiring a player they've had their eye on for a while at a relatively inexpensive draft cost.